If you're new to AI, there's a very good chance you've already heard people throwing around names like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. These are the three biggest AI chatbots online, and if you're just getting started, choosing which tool you want to start using can feel a little overwhelming. So in this video, I want to make it really simple. We're going to break down ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini one by one, specifically through the lens of content creation. We'll talk about where each one shines, where each one falls short, and which one might make the most sense for you. Welcome back to Tube Trends AIE, where we do the research so you don't have to. If you want to stay ahead in AI, join our channel news and updates. Links in the description. News, tools, and learning resources, all in one place. Now, before we dive in, spoiler alert, this is the biggest takeaway. All three of these tools are very good. They are much more similar than most beginners realize, and no matter which you choose, you can go through this entire video with zero issues. It's like choosing an iPhone or an Android as your smartphone. Both make calls, they send text messages, they take pictures, and so on. Despite the fact that people love arguing which one is better online, they're essentially the same tool. The real cheat code to using AI comes down to the user's skill and their ability to prompt the AI to get it to do what they want, which is a big topic that we cover in this course. So either way, this is not one of those situations where choosing the wrong one ruins everything. But with that being said, each one has its own personality and strengths. So let's get started with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is what most people consider the Swiss Army knife of AI chatbots. If I had to describe it in one sentence, I would call it the most versatile tool of the three. It's great for brainstorming ideas, building outlines, writing drafts and scripts, helping with daily tasks, and creating images. That's a big reason why so many people use it as their default AI tool. It does a little bit of everything, and it does most of these things really well. For content creators, that means you can use it to come up with video ideas, structure scripts, write emails, repurpose content, generate ad ideas, and even create or edit visuals without constantly bouncing between tools. That convenience is hard to beat. To give you a real-world example, think about how you might plan a content campaign. Instead of using one tool to find SEO keywords, another to write a script, and a third to draft social media posts, ChatGPT lets you run that entire pipeline in a single thread. It remembers the context of your brand, meaning you can ask it to generate a YouTube script, then immediately say, "Great, now turn that into a 5-tweet thread and an email newsletter draft." This cross-functional workflow is what makes it a massive time saver, especially when you are wearing multiple hats as a solo creator. And it's not just about text anymore. With integrated image generation and editing tools, you can describe a scene, get a high-quality visual, and then click to modify specific parts of that image on the fly. This means if you need a quick thumbnail concept or a clean graphic for a slide deck, you can generate and iterate on it without ever closing the chat window. That level of consolidation is a game changer for keeping your creative momentum going. Now, the downside with ChatGPT is that because it does so many things, it can sometimes feel a little broad, not best in class at one particular thing. The output is often very solid, but not always the most nuanced or human-sounding right away. So sometimes you need to guide it a bit more to really make the writing sound like you. If you ask it for a YouTube script, it will often give you a very standard, slightly cheesy intro unless you tell it otherwise. To get past this limitation, you have to move beyond basic one-sentence prompts. You have to feed it examples of your previous work, tell it what words or phrases to absolutely avoid, and specify the exact tone, whether that's casual, conversational, or highly technical. Fortunately, features like custom system instructions and memory settings allow you to lock in these preferences permanently. Instead of repasting your brand guidelines every single time you start a new chat, you can set it up so ChatGPT always knows who you are writing for and how you want to sound, transforming a generic assistant into a highly personalized creative partner. So in the next video, I will teach you how to train AI chatbots to adopt your voice and your thinking style to make it an even more perfect match for you. Either way, if you want one tool that can handle your day-to-day tasks, ChatGPT is probably the best starting point, and it's the AI chatbot that I will be referencing the most in this video. Up next is Claude. Claude is the thoughtful writing specialist. This is the tool that a lot of people love for script writing, long-form content, and refining drafts. What makes this writing focus so powerful is its massive processing capacity, often called the context window. While some tools struggle to remember what you said 20 minutes ago, Claude can easily digest massive amounts of background material in one go. You can upload an entire book chapter, a 45-minute raw podcast transcript, or a giant pile of research PDFs and say, summarize the key emotional hooks here, and it will pull out the most human, compelling details without breaking a sweat. For long-form creators, this makes it an unparalleled research companion. ChatGPT often gets criticized for being overly agreeable, never challenging you on your beliefs, and out of the box sounds a bit more robotic. In contrast to this, Claude often feels a little more natural, a little more thoughtful, and more human in the way that it writes. It's not afraid to call you out on mistakes, suggest deeper edits, and so on. So, if your biggest priority is having strong writing right out of the gate, Claude is a very strong option for you. This critical thinking ability is especially noticeable when you are brainstorming video hooks or titles. If you give Claude a weak or generic concept, it won't just say, "Great job," and write a mediocre script. Instead, it will often push back, explain why the hook might fail to grab attention, and offer 3 structurally different alternatives that build genuine curiosity. It feels much more like collaborating with a sharp developmental editor who actually cares about the quality of the final piece, rather than just an algorithm spitting out text. To take this even further, you can use a feature called Claude Projects. This essentially lets you build a custom workspace for your specific YouTube channel, social media account, or blog. You can upload your past successful scripts, your brand's unique style guide, and a list of your target audience's pain points. Once those are locked into the project's knowledge base, every single draft Claude generates from that moment on will automatically match your unique perspective and stylistic quirks, saving you hours of heavy editing. Claude also has some other features people really appreciate, like Claude Code, which is a helpful integration that is extremely powerful for coding sites, apps, and other tools. There's also Claude Cowork, which is basically a desktop integration that can give the AI access to your entire computer, so it can pull up different files, edit files, and it's more like an actual computer assistant rather than just a chatbot. This type of desktop-level agency is a massive shift in how we interact with AI. Instead of manually copying and pasting code, scripts, or assets between windows, these advanced features allow the AI to actively cooperate with your local workspace. It can observe what you are doing in real time, spot syntax errors as you write a web page, or help organize folders full of raw content assets. It acts less like a passive sounding board and more like a highly capable co-pilot sitting right next to you at your desk. Now, thinking through the perspective of a content creator, Claude does have 2 primary disadvantages. First is the usage limits. Each AI chatbot has a free and paid plan. The paid plans aren't really stronger or smarter than the free plans. Instead, you just get more usage. It's like having a car with a bigger gas tank. On the free plan, after a certain amount of usage over a day, the tool will basically tell you to chill out and let the gas tank reload before you can use it again. The Pro plan increases that gas tank, so you rarely hit any usage limits at all. Now, the Claude free plan does tend to hit that usage limit a bit earlier, but that's because of the fact that Claude thinks deeply about each answer it gives you, so it spends a little bit more of that gas with each question, which causes that limit to get hit. To understand why this gas tank runs out faster, it helps to know how the model processes information. Every time you send a new message in a chat, Claude doesn't just read that single message. It rereads the entire conversation history from the very beginning to keep the context perfect. So, if you have a massive script pasted at the top of your chat, each follow-up question burns a huge amount of processing power. A great pro tip to bypass this is to keep your chat threads highly focused and start fresh, clean conversations whenever you are ready to move on to a brand new task. So it's kind of a good and a bad thing at the same time. The other downside of Claude is that it doesn't have native or powerful AI image creation. Compare this to both ChatGPT and Gemini, which can create and edit amazing AI images. For content creators who need to generate YouTube thumbnails, social graphics, or visual storyboards, this means you will need to run a multi-tool pipeline. Many creators solve this by using Claude to write the absolute best script possible, and then copying the visual prompts or scene descriptions it generates over to ChatGPT or Gemini to handle the actual graphic generation. While it requires jumping between 2 different tabs, the superior quality of combining Claude's creative writing with another tool's visual engine is often worth the extra step. So at the end of the day, unlike ChatGPT, which is kind of good at everything but master of nothing, Claude took the approach of do less, but do it better. So if writing is your main priority, Claude is awesome. Then finally, we have Gemini, which is by Google. And right away, we've already covered the big superpower of Gemini. Considering it's owned by Google, they've done a great job of integrating it with all of the other Google tools like Gmail, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and so on. If you live inside the Google ecosystem, that integration can be very valuable. If you are actively managing a busy content schedule, you can ask Gemini to scan a specific folder in your Google Drive, analyze a raw brainstorming draft, and immediately format it into a structured video script directly inside Google Docs. It acts less like an isolated, separate browser tab and more like a live, interconnected bridge running between all the productivity software you already use daily, which can save you an unbelievable amount of copying and pasting when you are setting up your projects. The other main strength of Gemini is its ability to do extremely deep research. Within a single prompt, it can process basically more information than either of the other AI chatbots. Without getting overly technical, AI tools basically have a certain amount of tokens that they're able to spend each time you prompt it or ask a question. For simple numbers, most AI chatbots limit each prompt to around 200,000 tokens that they're allowed to spend getting the answer for you. Gemini can go up to 2 million tokens for a single prompt. So if you wanted an AI chatbot to basically read a 500-page book and give you a detailed summary, Gemini has enough tokens to read the entire book, think, and give you a summary. Whereas ChatGPT and Claude, they kind of run out of their tokens earlier and they lose deep, kind of like a muscle that just gets super fatigued. To put this in perspective for creative production, a 2 million token window doesn't just mean you can feed it massive piles of text. It means you can actually drag and drop an entire raw hour-long video file or hours of raw audio interviews straight into the chat box. You can ask it to find the exact timestamp where a specific topic was discussed, pull out the funniest moments for short-form clips, or summarize a highly complex discussion without having to transcribe anything first. This is a complete game changer if you do documentary-style videos, heavy research, or video essays. In theory, you could break that book up into all its individual chapters and call it ChatGPT would be able to process those smaller bites. But it's nice that Gemini is, strong enough to just do that all in one session. Gemini also has the added benefit of being owned by the same company that owns the largest search engine on planet Earth. So all of that searchability that Google has, Gemini can take advantage of, and again, it contributes to its really powerful deep research abilities. Because of this live engine integration, Gemini has real-time access to the active web, including up-to-the-minute news, trending topics, and search statistics. When you ask it to look up a current event, it doesn't just guess or rely on outdated static training data from a year ago. It literally queries Google search, indexes the most authoritative current articles, and displays the exact source links it used so you can double-check the facts. For commentary, tech, or news channels who need to be 100% accurate on breaking stories, this live grounding is a massive safety net. So, if you're creating really complex educational videos, deep dive content, research papers, or anything like that, Gemini is a really good option to explore. The drawback with Gemini is that it's not quite as creative with that research, so it's good at getting you the facts, but it might not be the best at writing a script and sounding like a human. So, in other words, it's not usually the tool that people get most excited about when it comes to polished script writing. It's more for research, organization, and using that larger Google ecosystem. This dry, highly literal style happens because Google heavily prioritizes raw factual accuracy over stylistic flair. Because of this, many professional creators use a hybrid strategy. They have Gemini handle the heavy lifting research, organize the structural arguments, and compile the factual points, and then they copy that structured outline over to a more narrative-focused tool like Claude or ChatGPT to actually write the human-sounding script. It's all about knowing which tool to use for which stage of the creative process. Now, the other superpower of Gemini is the fact that it has one of the best image generation and editing tools on the planet built into it, Nano Banana Pro. You'll learn a lot about this tool in the course, but it's awesome and it's nice that it's built into Gemini. However, you don't need Gemini to access Nano Banana. You can access Nano Banana through many other methods. You don't need subscriptions. You can pay, like, a few pennies, and it will generate or edit tons of images for you. This pay-as-you-go flexibility means you don't have to keep a premium monthly subscription active if you only need images occasionally. You can generate custom high-resolution visuals, mock-ups, or custom graphics for pennies per generation on external platforms. But having it natively inside Gemini is incredibly convenient when you're already in the middle of a chat and need a quick placeholder visual or a storyboard frame without leaving your main workspace. The flexibility here is truly unparalleled. When it comes to the free plans for all three of these AI chatbots, Gemini also has the largest gas tank on the free plan. You'll hit that usage limit a little bit less than you would compared to ChatGPT and Claude. This generous free tier means you can comfortably throw your biggest research documents and longest brainstorming sessions at Gemini without constantly worrying about being locked out. If you're starting out on a budget, you can easily use Gemini as your primary heavy lifter for scanning raw sources and summarizing massive datasets, while saving your limited ChatGPT or Claude free queries specifically for high-leverage voice matching or script writing tasks. Now, speaking of pricing, like I've said throughout this video, all three of them have free plans, and then all three of them have a paid plan that usually sits around $20 per month. The free plans are great, and like I said earlier, they're not dumber or less powerful than the paid plans. It has to do with that usage limit. My recommendation would be to dive in with the free plans, and then if you're constantly getting hit with usage limitations, you have two choices. First, you can just create free accounts with all three of the major chatbots and jump back and forth whenever you hit the limits. They're all honestly so similar. Sometimes I lose track of which one I'm using, and for most things, switching around is totally fine. When you paste the same prompt into both ChatGPT and Claude, you'll immediately see how differently they approach the exact same problem. This side-by-side comparison is often the best way to spark new ideas that you wouldn't have thought of if you were just talking to one AI. It's like having three different creative consultants sitting in on your brainstorming meeting, each bringing a slightly different perspective to the table. Your second option is, of course, upgrading to that paid plan so you don't hit usage limits anymore. But that does it, my friends. A quick overview of the three biggest chatbots on planet Earth right now. There are obviously other AI chatbots that we could talk about. I could sit here for hours and dive into each one in detail, but I'd be repeating myself a lot because they're all extremely similar. And if you have another tool that I didn't mention that you like using, keep using that. Watch our videos and you will see that the prompting skills and the creative way of thinking that we're going to teach you will apply to all of them. It's going to be a blast, but thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. At the end of the day, the tools themselves will continue to update, change names, and release new versions, but the foundational ability to clearly communicate, set parameters, and guide an AI's thinking is a skill that will serve you forever. Once you master the logic of how to speak to an AI, you'll be able to get incredible results out of any tool that comes along in the future. So focus on the strategies, enjoy the process, and let's get ready to build something amazing.